So this is my 1970 Dodge Challenger. It has a modern Hemi Swap. It's a 5.7 liter out of a 2005 Dodge Durango, and it has a 6-speed manual transmission. So ever since finishing the Hemi Swap, I've been dealing with a little bit of a driveline vibration problem. It's something that happens at higher speeds, so like around 70 miles per hour, I do feel a little bit of vibration in the car and the driveline, and it does seem to be coming from the rear. I don't get any sort of like steering wheel shake or anything like that, so it's certainly something with the rear wheels or maybe the balance of like, drive shaft or something like that. I have tried a few things to fix it. I got my wheels balanced, a couple of times, and I've tried many different pinion angles, adjusting it downwards and upwards, and that maybe seems to help a little bit, but I'm still having trouble. And after doing a lot of research, I kind of started learning about how when you do have a rear leaf spring car, and I guess under heavy acceleration, your pinion angle can actually change on the fly. So when you slow down, it dips down, and then when you give it power, it actually flexes up, and it changes your pinion angle as you drive. Now, the amount of change probably depends on what types of springs you run, how much power your car has. And I did put aftermarket springs on. Maybe this thing is flexing too much with these aftermarket springs, and I'm sort of chasing down a vibration that'll never actually go away because I'm never able to maintain a close enough, flat pinion angle. Anyway, that's my theory. So I'm gonna test this. So my brother sent me his old little camera here, little like GoPro sort of thing, and I've sort of clamped it here to the bottom of my cart. So that thing is pointed at the axle. I'm hoping this is a good enough view to see if we do have any sort of like axle wrap, where the pinion angle is twisting upward. All right, let's give it a try. Oh, I should mention too that another sort of telltale sign of what they call spring wrap, which is where your axle does twist up under acceleration, is wheel hop. And I've taken it to the drag strip a few times, and even on the street, just sort of going from a light, and giving a little extra throttle. I definitely do get wheel hop. So that's kind of another indicator that I might have this problem, and maybe that's adding vibration. So I'll start the camera, we'll take it for a little drive around the block, and I'll, give it a little bit of throttle, and we'll see what happens. Wow, that was actually pretty surprising. I did not expect it to axle wrap and wheel hop as much as it did. Actually, that was like a surprising amount of angle change on that rear pinion. I kind of assumed that these are Hotchkiss springs, and I kind of assumed they were like more on the stiffer side, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're not as stiff as I thought they were. I wonder if the fact that it's moving up so much means that I can never get it perfect. It's either pointed too far down or too far up when it's under load. And maybe that middle area is just really hard to get. I guess I kind of assumed that I wasn't putting enough power to the wheels. I thought that was more of a problem with like 600-700 horsepower, but I guess this is enough. So I think I should look into some traction bars. I know they make devices that can help with this, and maybe if I can hold that pinion at a little more constant angle, I can get rid of some of this vibration. But first, I'm kind of curious if this is typical of leaf spring cars. So my other car, actually, my Nissan Xterra, has the same suspension that this does, a solid rear axle and leaf springs, no traction devices. So I'm gonna mount the camera underneath that car, and I'm gonna, do the best I can to launch, even though it definitely has way less power. I would say probably about half the power that this car does, but I'm curious if it does have that same, pinion angle jump. If it does, I think we should be able to see it with a really hard gear change. It's a manual as well, so I'll just, really drop the clutch, and I'll see if I can get it to do it too. I got my Xterra here, and I got the camera mounted at a pretty good spot, I think. Let's see. And it has the same leaf spring rear suspension, no sort of traction device or anything like that. So I think this will be a pretty good comparison between the two. All right, there you have it. I guess maybe it's kind of a common thing for leaf spring cars to do. I was kind of surprised that my Xterra had so much pinion angle change as well. It's definitely a little less extreme, or I guess a lot less extreme than the Challenger, which seemed to like flip up all crazy. The Xterra seemed a little bit more stable, so no wheel hop that I noticed, but it definitely did rise up quite a bit. So, and I should say that other than a 2-inch lift, the Xterra is pretty much stock. And even really hammering the throttle, and raising that pinion angle, I don't notice any significant vibration. So it kind of makes me think like maybe that pinion angle isn't the main source of my problem. I think that given the amount of wheel hop that I get from my car, I could probably use some sort of traction device or whatever. I'll have to look into that. I know that there's like traction bars and various things you can do. So I think it's probably a good idea. All right, well, I got some good news about my vibration problem. I was thinking about how much the pinion angle changed on my Xterra and how it didn't really lead to any vibration. And, I did try shimming all different angles, down 3-4 degrees and up 2 degrees. Maybe it changed a little bit on acceleration or deceleration, but that sort of maintaining 70 miles an hour on the freeway or like around 70 and just getting that like constant shake made me think that I should have hit the right pinion angle at some point. So I called the shop that made my drive shaft. I thought that was my most likely suspect. And it turns out that adapter, this like billet adapter that they gave me with the drive shaft, I guess it fits into the end of the transmission really, really tight. And it just wasn't seating in there. The guy said that maybe even I should put like lubrication on it and tap it in with a hammer just to make sure that it sits perfectly flush in that tail shaft. And in this case, it seemed to go in, it seemed to bolt down, but I guess it just, was off just a little bit. So they seated it in there for me. I'll probably never take it off again. I'll just keep it bolted permanently. The vibrations seem to mostly go away. There is still a little bit of a shake here and there. I think there's still little odds and ends to work out. I also did order those traction bars. I did some research and it pretty much seems like the CalTracs, which is what these guys are the way to go. It seems like the most sort of modern way to kind of maintain your pinion angle and to give you more like firm launches when you're really hammering the throttle, or definitely when you're launching at the drag strip. So the idea behind these guys is pretty much, this thing will bolt into the front of your leaf spring, and then this guy replaces the plate that bolts the axle to the middle of the leaf spring. So this just kind of hangs down underneath the leaf spring. When that axle tries to twist up, this bar right here kind of prevents it from going forward. So it maintains your axle angle and then just gives you a more solid, push. So I'm going to install these guys and then I'll do the same exact launch and see what kind of difference these things make. All right, there you go. Traction bars installed. It was actually pretty easy. I think the hardest part was just pressing up that front bushing there, but not too hard, you know, something you can do with a bench vise. So I guess the idea here is to turn the traction bar to get more or less preload on there. So I think I'll probably try it at first, you know, with maybe 0 preload or just a little bit of preload. Nothing too aggressive, just to see how it works. All right, well, I gotta say I was kind of surprised. I still saw quite a bit of axle, you know, lift or axle, whatever, angle deflection. Now, I will say that I did not add any preload to my CalTracs bars. These things are actually adjustable, so you can basically extend the length of them by twisting them. It's actually threaded on both sides, so if you kind of twist it, it spreads the bar out, making it longer, which kind of, I guess, like pushes harder on the spring over here. You know, if it's like a track car only, you'll put quite a bit of preload on there. And for more of a street car, you definitely want to put less preload. At least that's what I read, you know, online or whatever. And in the directions, CalTracs actually suggests that you add a 1/4 turn of preload. I added kind of like maybe a 1/10 of a turn, like just a tiny bit of turn once the, you know, once the pin, here, let me show you. Basically, once the top of this perch here touches the leaf spring, that's when you start the preload, and then you want to add just a little bit so it kind of actually pushes down on the spring. Anyway, you know, one thing I did notice with the video was, you know, before I was getting some axle wraps, so the axle was sort of twisting like this, and the front leaf spring was like, you know, it was arched, and it kind of, it's almost like it went straight or even curved up a little bit. And it seems like it did get rid of that portion of it. However, this attaches to the front half of the spring, but this back half here, it almost seems like from the video, this part of it is still wrapping a little bit, like it's flattening out, trying to wrap. And it does seem to be preventing the front from wrapping. So I wonder if it kind of solves half the problem, but still allows for the spring to flex a little bit. But that's just kind of a thought I had. But it's a whole lot better. And it did eliminate the wheel hop. I think that was probably the biggest problem. I mean, the pinion angle is definitely a problem, but just the fact that that pinion would like flip up and get all crazy, that seems to be completely eliminated now. I just have like a solid, pretty much just like a solid Burnout. All right, well, I'll call that a win. I think it's definitely improved and a lot more solid feeling. I guess the next step is to take this thing back to the drag strip and see if these do what they're kind of designed to do, which is improve my launches. All right, I'll leave you with a Burnout that I recorded earlier so you can see just how crazy this thing was before the CalTracs were installed.